Well, we are excited to share with y'all tonight. We're from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and so we're excited to get out of Minnesota and come here, do something new. Very excited about that. But here's what our objective is tonight, guys, is we're going to give you some background on us, okay? And I really believe that as we go through our story a little bit here, that you're going to find out that really anybody can build this business, okay? And I mean that sincerely. I think you're going to appreciate some of it. But let's do this first. Here's our upline, okay? Obviously, Dexter and Bertie Yeager, okay? So that's pretty exciting. We are just so jacked to be here with you all tonight. So many diamonds over here. And it is so exciting just getting a chance to associate with successful people. So either way, but here's what we're going to do, guys. I'm going to turn this over to Elena. She's going to kind of kick things off so we can dive headfirst into stuff tonight. And let me just say this, okay, as we dive into our talk here. Just know that perfection is not a prerequisite to be a diamond. Perfection is not a prerequisite to be a diamond. Unlike some people may think, it's not. Okay? And you'll know that as a reality by the time we're done talking tonight. But here's my EDC lady, Elena.
Good evening. Well, we're going to tell you a little story about where we came from. And just tell you, Matt and I we're from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and definitely a product of the system, the same system that you're a part of. We do what you do. We go to the functions, we listen to the CDs, read our book of the month, and more, but the most important thing is that we listen to our upline and just follow the game plan that we have with them. I'll tell you, we have 4 children. Mason is 10 and a half, and he's in karate. He is testing for his brown belt on Tuesday. He really enjoys it. He excels in it, and he's excited because he'll be a black belt by the time he's 11. So that's cool. Certainly when we got started with that, we didn't expect him to, excel and just kind of move along so fast. But his instructor is the only 8th degree black belt in Minnesota. So that was cool that we were just kind of led into his path, and he's just been a really great experience for us. Perla is 7 and a half, and she is our dancer. Perla is in tap and jazz and ballet, but she really loves tap and jazz the most. She's a very exciting child, always looking for the joy in life. In fact, her middle name is Joy. And everywhere she goes, she smiles, and she's very fair-skinned, very, very blonde, with big, huge blue eyes, and just always the light of the room. And she is actually going to Nationals competition for dance in a week and a half. They're going out to Virginia Beach, where she'll be competing, and their school is putting on a production of Grease, and she actually plays Sandy. And she was just promoted up to this position last week, and so we're really excited about that. And Gabriella is our 6-year-old, and she kind of looks like Matt. She looks like a little Shirley Temple. Big, huge dimples, big blue eyes, and she too is a dancer, but her love is ballet. She's also the little princess of the family, where I would say Perla is more like our little diva. And Gabriella loves to be pampered. She loves her bubble baths, and we go for walks in the morning, and it's kind of humid, and we're like, Gabriella, why don't you take your bike? You've got a brand new bike. Well, it's been brand new for a couple of years now, because she won't ride it because she's afraid she'll get too sweaty. So, yeah. So we have this big, huge jogging stroller, like the biggest one we could find, and she's like, I'd really just like to ride again, please. So otherwise my hair will get messy, and we're like, oh my word. So we've just kind of humored her so far, and we told her when we get back from this trip, it's time to pull out the bike and figure it out, I mean, for crying out loud, she's 6 and it's got training wheels, so she should be able to figure it out. And then our youngest, Liliana, she's our little firecracker in the house. She is just a doll, 3 years old, and she's got long brown curly hair and big brown eyes, and she came into the world, with a bang. She was our trauma delivery, got to the hospital and she had no heartbeat, but they brought her out and she just came to life. Looked like she had passed away the day before, and they pulled her out in an emergency C-section, and she just came to life. And that was pretty awesome. She made a believer out of quite a few people that day. But she, again, is just so much fun. And the cool thing is that, like us, our children are also a product of this business. They're a product of their environment. CDs, when we listen to the CDs, they hear us talk about the books, and they're around the people that we mentor and the people that we are mentored by. So it's fun raising children who have a great PMA, a great positive mental attitude, and that's what I love about this business, is that, we're out there, we're setting the captives free, we're giving the world a chance, and we're changing lives one family at a time or one living room at a time. It's an opportunity to really make a difference in this world and show them how they can have freedom and lifestyle. Well, that's really what we've gained. I'll tell you where we started, though. Matt and I first saw the plan when we were living in married student housing at the university. Matt was going to school to be a doctor, and I was working downtown Minneapolis for a private investment banking firm. And I was content with my job. Matt was working full-time and going to school, and after we saw the plan, we were like, we can do this. I was a little hesitant, but I trusted Matt. Matt never did anything halfway. He was always a winner, and that was why I married him, because I knew that whatever we could do together, we could do it and do it big and finish strong. But I knew that he was a warrior, and I looked for that in a man. I looked for a man that wouldn't hide behind me, but a man who could get a vision and get a dream and go for it. And that's my husband. So we were living in married student housing, but we were, with the student loans and the cost of living and everything and having a baby on the way, we were kind of sliding backwards rather quickly. And so we moved into Matt's parents' basement, and we're building our business from there. And Matt will tell you a little bit more about our experiences there, but he would be out showing the plan. Well, I would be home with our child in their basement, which wasn't always good, because they were like, where's Matt? When's he coming home? And he would slide in at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning from showing the plan, and they would be waiting for him, of course. And then, but I was the one who was like, I don't know, he's showing the plan, he's working toward our future and just trying to stay positive, but just kind of, out of sight, out of mind. So we kind of hid downstairs quite a bit, but I do remember Matt's mom, and the thing is that they saw us originally aspiring to be a doctor, and for me to be a career woman, a corporate woman, but staying at home for a while, but then eventually going into that, and then they didn't understand why in the world would they do something else. This is, we don't understand, and I remember Matt's mom saying to me, I had a talk with your father-in-law last night. We just couldn't come home. We said, what are we doing? Are we raising idiots? And I was just like, why would you say that to me, It was just trying to make a point, but what we understood was that they loved us, and we just needed to be steadfast, and we needed to be strong, and that, we would show them, and as long as we were committed, we didn't show any wavering, then it really minimized their complaints. And so we just pressed on. We listened to our upline and stayed with the plan. And eventually I went back to work so that we could get out of there, because that was very much necessary. And so we started building the business from our apartment. And that's what it really took on, because we were able to build it more together and really be committed to what we were trying to accomplish. Our daughter Perla was born, and she again was another trauma delivery. And I won't go totally into all the specifics of that, but I tell you what, it gave me one of those moments where I had to stop and look at my life and who was I really, and was I fulfilling the purpose that I was created for? And truthfully, I was not. I was content. And, in that moment where I was going toward that light, and that's the truth, and, it got dark and I saw light, and I remember going, wait a minute here, hold on, because I have this little boy, and now I have this brand new baby girl, and an awesome husband that, I was, a little bit about me, I absolutely hated men because of what I had seen growing up. I did not trust them, and I was just like, my plan was to be 30 years old, a corporate woman. I thought, I will just be artificially inseminated and then be a single mom, and that was the way to be. I did not want to have to deal with men. So it was really a test of faith, and it was, I knew I loved him, and I knew that that's what I needed to do. And so here I am, my dream is being fulfilled, and I'm dying. And I'm going, okay, wait, hold on a second here, because you have made my dreams come true, but I don't know that I have fulfilled the purpose of which I've been created for. And it was like, please give me a chance, please, And then all of a sudden I heard, stats, quick, And then all the way around, my temperature had been like, I don't remember if it was up or down or whatever, but they checked my temperature and my pulse, and I had been hemorrhaging quite severely, and all three were perfect, like right on the dot. My temperature was 98.6, and my heartbeat was like, 120 over something, and I don't really understand all that. One of the nurses said, she's not bleeding. And they all just stood there and looked at me, but the room, it looked like a war zone, because there was blood everywhere. The one end of the bed was low, the other end was high, and it was, they were working hard to save my life, and I knew that I was being given a second chance, and I needed to make it count. I don't think thank you. I don't think in order to go diamond, it takes a major struggle like that, or it needs to, Building this business is fun and it's so rewarding every day. It's victory after victory, being able to make a difference in someone else's life, and make a difference in your own. And so this was my chance to really make it count. And so Matt and I started anew and really decided, this is it, we're going for it. And we had one tough year. I'll tell you what, there was a couple years there where obviously Matt and I had a lot of struggle. And what we learned is that life happens. Whether we were in this business or out of this business, we had some major struggles that we needed to overcome. We had a system that could teach us how to do it and do it successfully with the right attitude and the right heart. Because we were growing and changing, and that allowed us to be overcomers. And the business was the solution. I would lean on Matt's shoulder and just say, what do we do? And he's like, come on, honey, just stay with me. This is the solution. We just got to press on. We got to finish strong. We got to do whatever it takes. Our upline said, you need to have a whatever it takes mentality. Just go do it. That's what it will take for you to go diamond, is whatever it takes. Just go for it, and work on yourself. My upline, Lisa, said, come on, Alina, you're a diamond in the rough. Remember that lump of coal I talked about this afternoon. The diamond is that coal that endures under pressure. Be willing to go through that refining process that the books and CDs will take you through. And these functions, they'll allow you an opportunity for insight and personal growth so that you can become more relatable to people, so that you are the type of person that you can give away in any given moment when you need to be used, and when you can just reach out and shake someone's hand and they can look in your eyes and see something that they know they need. They may not know exactly what it is at that time, but they'll find it as you develop that relationship with them, as you build that bridge. And you take them on and you show them the dream, show them how your diamonds live. We were just totally blown away by some of the stories backstage here, how they live. And we're like, man, this is another level of a dream. Our dream is bigger now because we were here tonight. And we're so excited. Anyway, so our first Achievers trip. Achievers, we qualified. We held 7,500 points for 12 months. Q12, as it was called at the time, we went to San Diego, and that was our first Achievers trip. And I remember Joe Markowitz had us all rent convertible Sebrings, and we went up the coast up to Zuma Beach or somewhere like that, I can't remember. And I was sitting in the back of the convertible with my upline diamond, Michelle Leiniger, and I was thinking, I was so excited, just kind of living the moment and just going, this is so cool, we just got our $10,000 check, and we got a lot of our bills paid off. And we were just really excited about the rewards that we were feeling and the victories inside. And I was thinking, I wonder what Michelle's greatest victory is. My upline said, the greater the struggle, the greater the victory. So whenever we had car problems, it's like, we're going to have awesome cars, And so I looked at Michelle and I said, what do you think your greatest victory is? And she sat and thought about it for a minute. She said, my self-image. I thought, wow, that's cool. Well, no wonder, because every time I was around her, I was filled with joy, because she brought so much happiness everywhere she went. She's always smiling and always giggling, and such an awesome completer to her husband. Not a competitor. Never, ever did I see her as a competitor. Always a completer. She set the perfect example for me in that. And so she said my self-image, and that just made me think back, There was a time when we would go to the open meeting and I would wait to put my makeup on until right before we got there. And then Matt would say, why did you wait until the very end? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'll see you inside, Well, 8 o'clock would hit and I would finally have my makeup done in the car. I would run in, sit in the back because I wanted to avoid all contact. And I didn't want people to see what I saw about me because I wasn't happy with that. I just didn't feel like I measured up. And then when the plan was over, attitude, I would run to the furthest bathroom in the hotel, hide there. And then when I knew it was starting again, I literally watched my watch. Then I would run back down, sit in the last row again. And then when it was over, I was the first one to the car on the way to the night off. Sat in the back, in the booth, in the corner, That's how low my self-image was. But what brought those walls down was the books and the CDs. And finally, encouragement and understanding what my love languages were. It just kind of filled me up and built me up. And coming to the functions and getting a dream, understanding what my purpose was. All those things coming together slowly allowed me to be willing to be a friend to my upline and let her be a friend back. And develop cross-line relationships, develop more upline relationships so that they could help me grow and change. And so then I'm sitting in this convertible in San Diego going, you know what? I think that's my greatest victory too, is having a self-image, because I finally felt worthy of the dream and the rewards that would come with it, because I felt like I finally had something to give back. It's pretty cool. So what I learned what it takes to go diamond is a willingness to accept responsibility for my future. I had to do whatever it takes, finish strong. Building the business with children meant that we had to commit at a higher level. It meant we had to get some babysitters once in a while. We just were very careful about who we left our children with. We never wanted them to feel slighted or to feel neglected because we were building the business. We tried to make sure that we provided rewards for them for making a sacrifice. And I tell you what, today, they don't complain about us leaving. They don't complain about us building the business because they have an awesome life. They wake up every morning to mom and dad in the kitchen. We have eggs and bacon for breakfast. We go for walks as a family. Tomorrow night we're playing Shrek Monopoly, as a family, having movie night. Monday night, what I did is I took the kids out to dinner at the Macaroni Grill and had pasta at a nice restaurant. We're practicing for Christmas, because Dad wants to take us out to a really nice restaurant. So I'm working on the 3-year-old in the restaurant setting. And then we went and saw a movie. We went and saw Ratatouille, and it was just date night for the kids with Mom. Well, Matt was out showing the plan and building the dream. And it was just such a great night. But that's what we get to do. That's our life. I mean, that's simple. We just wanted to have our freedom and have lifestyle. We get to take them on trips with us. But, they have these rewards because they were willing to pay a little price. And you ask them, they'll tell you it's worth it, My upline diamond Mary Beth one time said, if you think you're going to go diamond and find happiness there, you got another thing coming to you. You need to figure out how to find happiness on your way to diamond. Otherwise, when you get diamond, you've got a rude awakening coming for you because you got a lot to do. And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, she's right. I still had some more chips on my shoulder that I needed to build back up and be stronger and to learn how to find that happiness. But you know what? In serving others, we become free, and that's where I found my happiness, was being willing to invest myself into someone else. Just last weekend said, what makes you happy is the pursuit of what you were created to do. Isn't that awesome? She is such an amazing woman. She taught me how to be a woman of strength and a woman of faith. For so many years, I remember sitting, in the nosebleeds in the Coliseums and looking at that diamond panel of ladies and going, even the emeralds, and going, what could I ever bring to that stage? What could I ever bring to this team? What strengths could I ever bring? How could I possibly ever measure up and fit in among those ladies? But you know what? This system brings purpose. This business brings purpose, and this business brings the realization of the dream, restores married couples. Matt and I were destined for divorce, I know already, because we had some pretty heavy arguments, and I don't know that we were any better than anyone else. We thought that we got into marriage, committed to unity and thinking we were going to stay together. But you know what? The reality of it is that we were just like everybody else. We were just a product of our environment, a product of this world, another classic American family, destined for separation. But the cool thing is that this business brings unity. Praise God for a husband, a man who's willing to live up to his full potential, a man who's willing to submit to our upline men. I know that I can be a submissive wife under his mission and follow him and support him in anything he does because I trust our leaders. They've never steered us wrong. They have a vested interest in us. I was always afraid of that word, submission. But when I understood that it meant under his mission, I was okay with that, because that meant that I had a mission too, and that I had a purpose, and that together we could figure that out. We could be a team. We could change the world. We could be a part of the world. We could do whatever we were supposed to do. It was awesome. I will let you hear from my diamond and my hero.
Okay. Little background. All right. I have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to blast through a couple of different things here. Little background on me. I used to own a construction company. Elena was right. Went to University of Minnesota, got a degree in biology, was looking at being a plastic surgeon for a while. Had everything lined up to get into medical school. Long story short, sat down with a bunch of plastic surgeons in the metro and asked them questions like, how's your lifestyle? How many hours a week are you working? And I found out that out of the 6 guys that I interviewed, 5 of them were divorced. The 6th one was going through a divorce, and they were working on an average of 85 to 110 hours a week. And I said, I don't care how much money you make, it's not worth it. And I just remember going home, I was kind of at a crossroads going, what am I going to do now? Because what do you do with a biology degree if you're not going to be a physician? That's really a question, because I've been wondering that for 10 years now. So I just, I'm selling it on eBay, in case anybody's wondering. But either way, long story short, so I started my own construction company. I was the guy that my parents made just enough money to where I didn't qualify for student loans, but not enough to where they could pay for my school. And so, are y'all with me? And so I worked full-time and went to school full-time and then tried to sleep every once in a while, then tried to be married, and that didn't work out so well. But I ended up walking away from school and going, okay, we're going to pursue the construction thing now. We're going to see what happens here. Did that for a handful of years. And construction's really a feast or famine type industry. Either you make a lot of money 1 month, or you don't make any money for 3 months, or you make a ton of money for 2 months and none for 6 months. And we never had any sort of financial regularity in our life. And Elaine and I were just looking for more. We were looking for stability. We were looking for adventure. But at the same point, we were looking for peace. That's what we were looking for. And when I first started the business, it was a buddy of mine named Ross Harriod who sponsored Elaine and I. And he actually worked on one of the construction job sites with me, and he would come into work and he would just plant seeds into my mind. He would say things like, the job is never going to pay you what you're worth. And, we would talk, and he had all these really intelligent things to tell me, which I now know that he got them from CDs. I've listened to him going, this guy's a genius. No. He just read the books and listened to the CDs, and he was good at quoting things, okay? And so, but everything he said just made so much sense to me, And I remember him saying, hey, listen, we just need to connect so I can show you what we're doing. And he showed me the plan. I knew 10 minutes into the plan that this is what Elaine and I were going to do. And so long story short, leaves our married student housing townhome. And as he's taken off, he shuts the door behind him. And I looked at Elaine and I said, what do you think? She said, we need to think about it. I said, well, while you're thinking, I'm going to get started. And listen, I didn't have the best people skills at that point, but I don't regret saying that. I didn't ask my wife's permission to put us in a financial bind. I didn't figure I needed it to get out of it. So the point is, I remember calling up Ross the next day saying, hey, we're ready to get started. He says, well, we need to do a follow-up. I said, go follow up with somebody else. I'm ready to get going. So what's wrong with you? Get over here and register me, I was an IBO waiting to happen. I was ready. Now keep in mind, I was rough around the edges, okay? I had a goatee, but it wasn't a good one. How many people have seen the cartoon Scooby-Doo? There's a character on there named Shaggy, right? I looked like that, okay? I had this goatee, but I couldn't grow the hair right here, so I couldn't really bridge the gap. It didn't look very nice. I also had long hair. Oh, yeah, like down past my shoulders. I had a ponytail, but it wasn't good. It was kind of like a cross between the Bee Gees and like a Trailer Park Michael Bolton, okay? Now, the intention was Lorenzo Lamas, which was never accomplished. That was me. I didn't have a suit when I got in. I was I worked with career construction workers, where 4-letter words are a whole new language. That's just the way they communicate. Our entire construction crew had the IQ of a head of cabbage. So, but I'm telling you like a friend, that was my life. That's all that I knew. So now I'm immersed into a business owner program, right? And I just remember the first guys that I sponsored. I remember the first phone call that I made. I was jacked about this thing. I couldn't sleep at night. I would pace the halls of our little town home at night. And I just remember I started putting a list together just like my upline told me. And I looked at Elena and said, I'm going to make some calls. I got to go do some business. I'm going to go upstairs. And so I run upstairs and I shut the door because I didn't want her in there because I was kind of scared to make phone calls. You know what I'm talking about? I didn't want to fail in front of my wife, that whole thing. I remember my first call. I called up my buddy John. I said, hey, John, I'm doing some business online, working with some guys here in the area. Boom, 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 boom. And I said, hey, you keeping your eyes open? He said, absolutely not, but what do you have? Like, that's the one response my upline didn't prepare. And here's what it was. He was trying to eat my lunch. That's what it was. He was a dream stealer, right? And he says, well, what do you got? And so I was dumb, you know. So I tried to explain. He says, well, that sounds like a pyramid. I said, well, it's not. That was my comeback. I mean, there isn't more. That's all it was. And he said, well, I think it is. I said, well, it's not. Well, I think it is. Well, I think it's that went on for like 2 minutes, which is really a long time for that sort of a conversation. And I remember thinking in my mind, you know, it's kind of back in the grade school days when you're on the kickball court or whatever. And I remember thinking in my mind, you know, I'm really frustrated. I just want to throw something at this guy, you know? And so I just resorted to threats. You know, I just said, well, it's not. And he says, well, I think it is. I said, well, here's a tip. I can be at your house in 5 minutes and I'll roll you out like wholesale carpet. And he says, well, maybe it's not. I said, good answer. Good answer. Well, I ended up sponsoring him down the road. He ended up getting involved in our business. But that was my first call. You know, that didn't go real well. You know what I'm talking about? The first plan that I showed took about 4 minutes for all of the information. I'm not talking to QI, I'm talking the whole deal. I probably had videos, okay? I mean, everything. And I told the guy how dumb he would be if he didn't get in the business at least 5 times. She was there, she knows. Which, of course, he didn't get in. And I said, well, I guess my question's answered as to whether or not you have an intellect. And I just remember getting in the car. And Elena saying to me, you know, maybe you need to just polish it up a little bit, work on your people skills. I'm like, what are you talking about, work on my people skills? You know? But that was me. And so I ended up, you know, last resort, I started sponsoring my construction friends. You know, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. That's who I started sponsoring. So I do. I register all these guys, and they got in mainly because I talked them in, right? Now I'm just going to give you a view here. Now, in Minnesota, when we go to major functions, you know, we take a bus, right? And most of our functions are in Nashville, Tennessee, or they're in North Carolina. And so you've got a 26-hour bus ride. Now, let me tell you something. You get unified when you're on the bus for 26 hours. I know everything about you and the lady that cuts your hair. I know everything about you. And so we have a really unified team. And I just remember going to the first function and coming back going, there's no way that I'm going on that bus again, and this is honest truth, and not drinking on the way to the function. You think I'm kidding. I am so not kidding. And so me and the Funky Bunch, second function comes rolling around. And I told Elena to stay home. I'm like, you don't need to go to this. I'll get the info. What a moron, you know? There's dumb, then there's really dumb. Okay, I was in the really dumb category. So, long story short, second function comes rolling around. We get a bunch of booze. We bring it on the bus, and we're in the back of the bus, and we're getting ripped on the bus. My upline's in the front of the bus, Gene Goldschmidt. He looks back, he goes, those guys are really fired up. Well, kinda. Yeah, kinda. Kinda, in a way. Sorta. So, we didn't even make it out of the hotel room to the function our first night. Complaints from the front desk. Here's how dumb I was. I get on the phone and I call my wife. We're having such an awesome time here. This is great. Oh, we're partying. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then I wondered when I got home why she didn't trust me. Well, shortly after that, you know, I went to another conference and I had a chance to get my life right, and I decided I didn't want to drink anymore. Well, watch this. The Funky Bunch, they didn't get their life right on that same day, so they decided that you know, well, Grotwald isn't having that much fun anymore, so we want to kind of go do our own thing. And long story short, these guys all quit. Well, gee, I wonder why. Understand that people don't follow words, they follow character. And there wasn't anything that I was doing that was inspiring them to be better. And so they left as easy as they came. Fair weather friends. And so, but I remember that making me mad. That ticked me off. You know, I'm a sports guy. And this business became my sport. You know, I heard this quote from a friend of mine and I think it's a really good quote. Here's what he says. He says, this business is just hard enough to keep the people that don't deserve it from having it. It is a total fact. And I viewed this business at that point like it was beating me. And you've got two different types of people out there. You've got the folks that really love to win, and then you've got the folks that hate to lose more than they like winning. That's me. I can't stand losing more than I like winning. But that's just the way that I felt at that time. I'm like, this thing is kicking my butt. There's no way this is going to win. And and I made a decision. I drew a line in the sand and I said, that's it. This is going to be my career. And I burned every bridge that I had. I told my parents, this is what I'm doing. We talked and we just started going forward. Now, I will tell you this. It's amazing on how when you make a decision that the decision is immediately tested. to find out whether or not you're serious. Well, the economy changed and my construction company tanked. And Elena talked about a couple of tough years. I remember the second year in the business, this all happened in the same year. My car was repoed. I went without a car for about 6 months. But we showed the plan. Listen, we showed the plan 10 to 15 times a week without a vehicle. Why? Because what else are you going to do? You got excuses or you have reasons. I remember Elena collecting change that she would find on the sidewalk because we needed it. We couldn't afford to put food in our fridge. I remember, you see, in Minneapolis, when springtime starts rolling around and winter's on its way out, if it reaches a certain temperature, they can shut your heat off. Well, it got up just high enough where they shut our heat and hot water off. Well, then the temperature dipped to about 29 or 28 degrees, and we went without heat for about 8 or 9 weeks. I remember that. I remember going to my parents' house so we could take hot showers. That same year, I remember Elena's dad passing away. I remember the ectopic pregnancy that Elena had. I remember the miscarriage she had, all in the same year. And I remember thinking back to that going, if there was a time where we would have been on the way out, that would have been the time. But you want to know what kept us normal? A vision. When our life got tough, we showed the plan. Here's what you're going to find out is growth solves everything. Growth in your business does solve everything. You may not understand that right now, but it really does, and we got busy. Well, long story short, we had to move into my parents' house. We didn't have enough money to keep living on our own. We moved into my parents' house, and so we moved into the basement. Of course, Mason is born at that time, and which is really a humbling experience because my dad already didn't agree with the business. He wanted me to be a physician because it was kind of his ego and reputation on the line at the same time. Well, long story short, I wasn't around enough to really catch a lot of flack from him, except when I came home late. But Elaine and I dug our heels in, and we started to show the plan, and we started to find some people that caught a dream the same way that we did. I remember sponsoring Bob Rivers. He's actually our 6th platinum leg. When I sponsored Bob, he had a team out in Thief River Falls, about 5 hours away. And Bob and I would get off work at 4 o'clock. We'd jump in the car. We'd drive to Thief River Falls. We'd do a home meeting. We'd turn around, and we'd come back the same day. And I remember doing that over 20 times. Well, there were a handful of times when I would walk in the door, and my dad would be waiting up for me as the sun's coming up in his robe. Which that's really frightening, to be honest with you. And he'd be up there waiting for me. And my wife and son are sleeping in the basement, and he'd be doing this with his fingers. And I don't care who you are, every single man wants the respect of your father. And I remember my dad saying this to me, saying, "What are you doing? Your wife and son are in my basement. What are you doing?" And I remember that night him offering me an opportunity. He was in real estate at the point, and this is when real estate was really starting to climb, and he says, "Matt, listen, I can put you in a model home. You can be a buyer's agent. You can make $100,000 a year." And I remember saying to my dad that night, "Dad, my dream is not for sale. Not for $100,000, not for $200,000. I know exactly what I'm doing with my life." But I think you're going to have defining moments like that you will look back on and go, that's a part of who I am today. I remember not too long ago coming back around the corner when I was at about 600 points in business, coming back around 494, which is one of the major freeways, coming back from Thief River again. And watching the sun come up and looking over to my right, and Bob Rivers is passed out in the car. And I remember thinking to myself, either I'm crazy or I'm destined for greatness. And I knew at that point that because Elaine and I were willing to do things that the masses weren't willing to do, that we were going to live an extraordinary life that ordinary people would never touch. And I knew that would happen. And I will tell you this, you will have moments like that throughout your business where you're going to be able to separate your masses. I remember driving down the streets and seeing the blue haze in the window of average people. Here's a statement. What vodka did to the Russians, TV is doing to the Americans. What vodka did to the Russians, TV is doing to the Americans. Just plug right in, baby. Lane and I didn't want to be average. We wanted to make a difference. Well, long story short, we ended up going 4,000 points, and we moved out of my parents' house. All of a sudden, we went 7,500 PV, and now we had a team. We had a handful of people that were unified, that were with us. And they looked at this business, and they started to get committed. And I was excited about that. I was excited about seeing guys showing up to the open meeting. I was excited about seeing guys get on the bus and drive to functions with me. I remember showing up and starting to match me QI for QI. That inspired me. I think everybody needs a wingman to hold you accountable, to make you better. Okay? Well, shortly after that, we went Ruby. And I remember being at about $7,000 a month. And that was when money started to not control us so much. It didn't have such a grip on our life that we could now make some good decisions. I remember going into work and seeing the major contractor that I worked with, who really sent me all my work. I affectionately called him Captain Ken and the Chili Beans because he looks like their mascot. But if you ever seen the video game Super Mario Brothers, he looks exactly like Luigi. Stands about this tall, got the mustache, the whole deal. And so I show up there, and I remember in the summertime, I remember showing up late. Getting there at about 10 a.m. because my daughter Perla was sick this morning. And I wanted to be able to hang out at home and help Elena with a couple of different things and make sure she got started off on the right foot. And I showed up a little bit late, and Captain Ken and the Chili Beans gets in my face, and he says, "Hey, you're 3 hours late. You know, we're supposed to get this house knocked out today. We're supposed to be painting today. We're burning daylight." And what he's doing is he's insulting me in front of my crew. And I remember for the first time not having to step back, but I stepped forward. And I looked at him straight in the face and I said, "Lower your voice." And I said, "Either you're going to treat me with respect or I ain't coming back tomorrow because your paycheck no longer controls my life." How many people want to be in a position where money is no longer the driving force in your life and you can now make decisions based upon the merit of that decision and not based upon the dollar bill? Ruby started doing that for Elaine and I. Well, long story short, shortly after that, we broke our first platinum organization. We ran 20,000 PV outside of that first platinum team. We broke our second platinum organization. We ran 20,000 PV outside of our second platinum organization. And my construction company continued to do this. I remember getting on the phone with my upline diamond saying, "Alan, you know, I can go out there and get a traditional job, but we're making $180,000 a year in our spare time. What do you think I do?" And I remember this like it was yesterday. He said this to me. He says, "How about you just hang it up?" He says, "How about you just retire?" I was 28 years old. And I remember the phone call because I remember my last day at work like it was yesterday. I remember jumping in the car with my friend who's going to start Sapphire qualification in the next month or two here. And I remember jumping in the car with Jake. And we motor on over to this new construction home. See, Jake and I had this system down where we could knock out and paint out the inside of a new construction home in about 3 hours, 2 coats. Do with a spray or whatever. You don't want to know the details. It's really boring. But I remember pulling up there, waiting for a divine inspiration to walk into the house normally, but it was different this day because I knew it would be the last day that I would do it. And it's funny because I took my time that day. You know, I polished off the windows right. I polished off the tub right. You know, we strained the paint. We did everything right. We took our time. And I remember wrapping up and looking out the window, and Jake's in the car, and the car's fired up, and he's waiting for me. And the last thing to go on in the new construction home are the garage doors because they get beat up so bad. And so I'm walking out the door that goes into the garage, and I've got my hand on the doorknob, and I take one last look inside that house, and I remember shutting that door on that chapter of my life, never to work for another man for the rest of my life. And I remember that. You see, it really didn't hit me until the next morning. When because of habit, you know, I kind of leapt out of bed at about 7 a.m., and Elena put her hand on my chest, and she said, "You don't have to go to work today. Remember, you're free." And I said, "Oh, yeah." And I laid back down and went to sleep till 10 o'clock. And I made a decision that I would wake up rested each day. Okay, well, it's been about 5 years now, and I don't think we've got out of bed before 9:45 or 10 a.m. So I'm not sure why you built the business. I built it for sleep, okay, in the beginning. If that makes sense to anybody. Well, shortly after that, we went Emerald. Things started to happen at Emerald. Our income jumped by $100,000 a year when we went Emerald. Lifestyle started to kick in. You know, one of Elena's dreams was that she wanted to have some Coach purses. She wanted to be able to do things like that. I remember that year buying her 15 Coach purses, right? You know, I remember going out there and buying 7 or 8 new suits for myself and, you know, buying a couple of pairs of shoes that were $400 each pair and being able to do these things. Not that material possessions make you happy. They don't. But here's a tip. Either does the lack of them. I've had poverty. I'll take money, okay? Now, listen, I'm a believer in purpose. I'm the purpose guy. I talk about vision and purpose all the time. But here's a tip. You have to have money to make a difference in many cases. You have to be free. But Emerald brought freedom with lifestyle. But I remember this, guys, because at Emerald we weren't finished. You know, I made a promise to my wife that eventually we would go diamond. And it was funny because the transition in my parents was occurring at this time. You know, where they saw us making $500 a month, and they saw it go to $1,000 a month, and they saw it go to $7,000 a month. And it went from you know, we're going to battle with you, to about it now because it's very clear that you're never going to quit, to let's just don't bring it up at family functions, to you're making $7,000 a month. That thing is, I mean, is that? And they started asking questions. But I knew, listen now, I knew that I had been disrespected by my father when people had asked him questions about, hey, what does your son do? Well, he kind of does this thing, whatever. He was ashamed because he didn't understand the business concept. Well, at Emerald, we dug our heels in because I made my upline a promise that we would go diamond and that we would join him. And I remember thinking back to what we did to go Emerald. I remember the pace. You know, I didn't want to be the guy where my upline was at Peter Island again, filling out another postcard again and going, we got to write another one to Grotwald. You know, it's been 14 years. We got to write another one to him. Maybe that sits with some of y'all, but that was me. I didn't want him to have to do that. He needed somebody with him. And I remember making our run. I remember drawing the line in the sand and making that run. Were we tired? Absolutely. Some of the best days of my life. I remember the day that we qualified. In fact, it was about 5 days ago, a year and 5 days ago, we were brand new diamonds. I remember I was in my Q45 Infinity that I paid cash for. And I was driving down my street. And I had the moonroof open, the sun, the windows down, and I remember getting a call from my wife, and she's, we're qualified, you know, she's all jacked, and I pull into my house, and there's my girls, and they're all jumping around the yard, and Elena went out there and bought them T-shirts that says "My Dad Rocks," you know, right on the front of them, and they're all dancing in the yard and having an awesome time, but I remember calling up my parents saying, hey, we really want you to come to this conference called Free Enterprise Day. We want you to be there when Elaine and I get recognized as new diamonds. We'd sure love for you to come. See, the business in the beginning for our family was like a massive puzzle. See, when Elaine and I, when we got started, because we saw the plan, we saw the outside of the box. We saw the picture. We knew what it was intended to look like, and we knew how many pieces we had already put into place with that puzzle. My parents were starting to see that too. But the day that I qualified was a day, I don't know how else to describe it outside of movies. I'm kind of a movie guy. Does anybody else like movies? I don't know why, but I think in pictures. Think about this. Hey, has anybody ever seen the movie The Natural with Robert Redford where he hits the ball into the lights? What would it feel like to do that? You know, how about the movie The Miracle that came out about the U.S. hockey team, right? You know, where Herb Brooks walks in the back room and he's kind of fist pumping like this because he doesn't know how to express his feelings. He finally beat the Soviets and he kind of leans against the wall and he starts to cry. You know, is it the movie For the Love of the Game where Kevin Costner finally pitches the perfect game? And his teammate says, I told you we wouldn't let you down. All these different things are rolling through my mind at that moment going, this is really real. I felt like our life was a movie. And I was watching it because it was actually real this time. Well, fast forward, we're at Free Enterprise Day. My parents show up. You know, it's tradition with the team that we work with for the ladies. They get to take a shopping trip and go anywhere they want to in the country to purchase their gown for Free Enterprise Day. And so I remember pulling out a bunch of cash and a bunch of money and giving it to Elena, and she jumps on a jet with her hero, Michelle Leiniger, and they fly to New York. And Elena walks into the Oscar de la Renta store, and she sees her dress. And I remember getting the phone call from my wife as I'm in my backyard. I think I was rolling up a garden hose or something. It's all sweaty, pair of cut-off jean shorts. She calls me up. She says, I need more money. I'm like, okay. Well, I gave you $10,000. How much do you need for a dress? She says, well, the one I found is $14,000. I'm like, what, is it going to give you like a back rub or something? I mean, could you, is there a stereo in that thing? I mean, what does it do? You know? She says, well, don't worry. We can get it on sale. It's only $8,000 today. I remember thinking to myself, going, okay, you bought a handful of suits. You get an $8,000 dress. Well, it turns out there's a TV show that I'm not going to recommend that you watch, but it's called Oprah, okay? And she had an episode. This is my wife telling me this now. She had an episode called World's Most Fabulous Gowns. Elena's dress was on the Oprah show, and it was only worn one time by one of the supermodels. And here's my wife at Free Enterprise Day wearing one of the world's most fabulous gowns. Is that cool? Right? And I just remember thinking, one of my dreams, and I think that every man can relate to this, one of my dreams was to be able to treat my wife first class. I wanted to be able to do that. I made her a lot of promises. Let's face the facts. I sold her on marrying me. I said, I'll take care of you. I'll provide stuff for you. And then we got married and I put her to work, okay? And so when we went diamond, I was reconciling the situation, all right? I had to make up for some lost ground. I remember getting up there and giving our talk as new diamonds. And I look over to my left and I see my dad. Rewind. Let's rewind. Before we even got up to speak, I had a chance to grab my dad and to bring him in the back room and to introduce him to my heroes. I introduced my dad to Larry Winters. I introduced my dad to Joe Markowitz. I introduced my dad to Alan Leininger, and you know, Alan and Joe, they shake my dad's hand and they said, "You've got to be proud of your son. He's really making a difference." And my dad, I remember, so we get up on stage, you know, we're recognized as new diamonds. This is the first time that our parents had ever heard us speak from stage before. You know, they're not on CD of the week. Yeah, they're not like, "Hey, son, we got to get your rally CD. We got to hear that." Right. No, that wasn't happening. And so we're up there, and I remember as I'm talking, I glanced over and I could see my dad's face changing. Elena's parents were sitting there, and they were catching a dream. Well, it's funny because after we were done talking, the puzzle was complete. It was that last piece that I was able to put right in the center. And at that point, my parents were finally able to see what Elaine and I have been working all these years for. And my dad came up to me after the conference and he said this to me. He says, first came the apology. He said, "Listen, I'm sorry." And then after that came admiration. He said, "I admire you. You're making a difference." And then after that came respect. He said, "I respect the fact that you did what you needed to do and you didn't listen to me. I appreciate that." And I want you to think about that, because I will tell you that is a battle. That is a battle for many, many people, especially young people when they get started in this business, because this business is not traditional business. Thank God. Works better because it's not. I've had a traditional business. And some of the young folks battle with their parents. Well, here's a tip. Go succeed. And it will reconcile everything. Go succeed. Well, long story short, Elena's parents were also at the conference. They were there Friday night. They stayed Saturday. They stayed Saturday night. They stayed Sunday. They called us up. They said, "Hey, we want to build this." I said, "What?" They said, "Yeah, we want in." We said, "Okay." So, you know, we register them, and they go 300 points their first month, 1,000 points their second month, 2,500 their third month. They just went 4,000 last month. They'll start Q12 qualification in September. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I don't know if I was excited or kind of ticked off, because they're growing it faster than I did. But what gets me over that is I kind of like telling them what to do. So that's okay. It's kind of a good time. Now, they're hilarious. We have an awesome time with them. But it's cool seeing a couple have a dream and work together and being a part of that. You know, I'm telling you, life after diamond is spectacular. You see, you've got to ask yourself the question, who wins when you do make it? Do you understand that you have got... See, I really think that you've got people in your life right now that watch everything that you do. And there are so many people that live in fear, that want to go after their dream, and you're inspiring them to be better. I know that because I've seen people in our family, I've seen different decisions that they make now based upon the success that Elaine and I have had. And watch this, when they come looking for advice, who do you think they call? When they come looking for financial help and support, who do you think they call? Well, it was pretty cool. You know, Elaine and I, we ended up, we purchased a new home this last year. Our first house, 6-bedroom house. And I remember calling up my parents. They're real estate agents. And, you know, they kind of helped us with all the work and, you know, finding the home, that whole thing. And I remember them calling us up going, "You guys are approved for a $1.4 million home. You got to be jacked," you know, and that whole thing. And I'm thinking, my gosh, what a difference a handful of years make when we were living in their basement. Think about the progression. Go from their basement to, if we wanted to, buy a $1.4 million house in just a handful of years. Lena drives a nice truck. It's got 20-inch rims on it. You know, we're about to buy an H2 for her. I'm looking at there's a Maserati Quattraport that I'm kind of looking at right now as well. But I will tell you this, there are so many cool things that you're going to be able to do. We'll end with this. I buy this house. I didn't like the color of the house. I haven't painted anything for years. So I've kind of got a dilemma on my hands. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I'm like, well, I don't like the color of the house. You know, my upline taught me, hey, do things first class, so we're going to paint the house. Who do I call? Took me about 4 seconds to figure the answer of that question out. So I get on the phone and I call up Captain. He's not a bad guy. He's a funny guy. And I call him up and I said, hey, Jim, do you want some work? He said, yeah. I said, how about my house? He says, okay, no problem. And I said, well, there's a prerequisite on it. There's a condition. You got to make sure that your son, Josh, is still working with you. Now, you have to understand, Jim's sons were they're kind of wild in a way, for lack of better ways to describe it. They were weightlifters. They were on about 4 different kinds of steroids, and they were just kind of out there, for the most part, circus performers. And so, but his youngest, Josh, had the people skills of Bam Bam off of the Flintstones, and he's the type of guy, okay? He's the type of guy that you would be out there working, and because his dad is the big boss man, he owns the company, he would come up behind you and he would kind of pat you on the back and he'd say, Matt, you're doing a good job. I'm going to tell my dad. And I go, I'm going to put you in a lunchbox. So I'm on the phone with Jim, and I said, Jim, I want to have you come paint my house. I want you to come over. And but listen, is Josh working for you? He said, yeah. I said, you got the job. Done. You have the job. And so here's what I'm going to do. This doesn't have to be you. This is just me. And so Jim's coming over to paint the house, and they're going to be out there working away, and I'm going to send my son Mason out there. I have absolutely no idea what your dream is. This just happens to be one of mine. And my son Mason's going to go out there, and he's going to walk up behind Josh, and he's going to pat him on the small of the back and say, you're doing a good job. I'm going to tell my dad. Does that sound cool? Man, crazy stuff, In the year that we bought the house, we bought all new furniture for the house. We didn't move any of our old stuff in. All the kids got brand new bedroom sets. Buy the house, did all of that, and I think we banked $50,000 in the same month. Understand that lifestyle is real. Let me tell you what you don't remember when you qualify Diamond. You don't remember struggle. We'll end with this. Understand you don't pay a price to build the business. You pay a price when you don't. This business has never been a price for Elaine and I. It's been a lifestyle. The best moments that we've had in our life have happened with this team. And I will tell you this, what a way to leave a legacy. Here's the important piece that you got to remember, okay? And I got this from a book. It's not my quote, but I'm going to steal it, but I think it's pertinent for this time. These are extraordinary times that we're living in right now. They really are. The business is so good. But the most important point in a man's life is knowing his time when it comes. That time is now. Thanks.